A new weapon in your arsenal in time management is delegation. As a manager, you don't always have to do everything that's thrown at you. Remember, you have a team now, so let them help you. Let them do their jobs. Don't pile stuff on people where they're already overworked, obviously, but if you have someone on your team who's appropriate to take on a task, let them do it. Do you have a project manager on your team? Maybe you should let them take care of your project management instead of worrying about it yourself. Yes, you'll work with your project manager. Make sure you understand what's going on. Make sure you understand the same priorities and have the same expectations. But the actual nitty-gritty of doing the project management, let your project manager do it. Do you have a shared administrative assistant that can take on some tasks that are being thrown at you? If so, let them do it. All too often, I've seen assistants in companies that are bored, because everybody doesn't want to let go. They're afraid to ask to let her help. So let them do their job. They don't want to be bored. They want stuff to do. They want to help. So let them. Now, there is a balance to be struck here, right? First of all, you don't want to be piling stuff on to somebody who's already overworked. That's just going to lead to them being overwhelmed and ultimately quitting and having zero productivity. So be mindful of what other responsibilities people have before you try to add something to their list, okay? Also, try to align tasks with people's career goals. So if you're being given some task to design a new system, and you have an engineer who's looking to be promoted to a principal engineer or a senior engineer, that's a wonderful opportunity to let them take that on. Yes, you'll want to review that work and guide it, but they can do a lot of it for you. And at the end of the day, it's going to help their career. And if they're growing in their career and they feel like they're making creative choices, they're going to be happy, they'll be more productive, and your whole team will be more productive, and they'll appreciate that, okay? Now, I want to call this out because this is really a very common pitfall for new managers. You're not used to this idea of other people doing things. You want to hold on to stuff where you have control of it. Don't take on every task yourself just because you don't trust anybody else to do it. Remember, you're not necessarily the smartest person on the team. There are other talented people that work with you. You should trust them to do their jobs. If you don't, they're going to take it personally. So if you just take on everything and you're afraid to let things go or delegate stuff out, not only does that impact your own productivity and pile things onto you to the point where you can't handle it anymore, your team might resent it, actually. If you're taking all these good opportunities and interesting tasks for yourself, they're not going to like that. They want to do that stuff too, right? So this is really a very common new manager pitfall of just hanging on to everything and being afraid to let it go. Remember, you got a team. Let them do their job. Let them do their work. Now, if you do delegate tasks, make sure that you're setting clear expectations for what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by, okay? Don't just do a drive-by by walking by someone's desk and say, hey, Janet, can you design this system for me? Sure, okay, great. That's not good enough. You need to be more specific about what the requirements are, when it needs to be done by, what follow-up meetings might be required. Make sure you're specific. This is like management basics. You don't just give vague instructions to somebody unless they're very high level or very senior. You need to be more specific about what needs to be done. Certainly when it needs to be done by. And make sure you set expectations that if it's not going as planned or if it's a bigger effort than you thought, they need to tell you right away so you can calibrate your own expectations or maybe get additional help if you need to. Or maybe take some of it back on yourself. Sometimes that happens too. Always maintain open communication with the person you delegated to so that you know of any delays or issues as soon as possible. You don't want to be surprised by this stuff because at the end of the day, you're still responsible for it as a manager. Also, you don't need to say yes to everything. Another new trick you can use as a manager is saying no. Maybe you're not actually the right person to do this, or your team's not the right person to do this. We might call this delegating out if it means somebody else is going to do it instead. It sounds a little bit cheesy, but sometimes it's the right thing to do for the company, right? You don't have to accept every task that gets thrown your way. First, ask, are you the right and best person to do it? Now, if there's someone on your team that's better suited to do this, that's a pretty easy thing to do, right? Someone comes to you and says, hey, can you do X? You might say, well, if you don't object, I'd like to give Susan on my team a chance to do this instead. It really aligns with her career plans, and I think she's qualified to do it. Let's give her a shot. And usually they'll say, yeah, that's cool. And if it's somebody outside of your chain of command that's a better fit for this task, well, that gets a little bit more delicate, right? So in that situation, you want to talk to whoever's assigning this to you face to face and make sure that it's clear that you're not just trying to avoid this task because you're overworked. You really want to find the right person to do it, and that might not be your team at all. And it's possible that you'll discover something during that face-to-face conversation. Maybe your boss is giving you this task as a chance to grow your own career, to challenge you explicitly. So if that's the case, well, maybe you should take it on, right? It might be a good opportunity. but just, present the facts. You don't want to make this into I'm so overwhelmed, I can't do this kind of a conversation. What you want to do is just present the facts of what is going to suffer if you do take this on. So you can always take on a new task. It just means the other stuff you're doing isn't going to get done, right? So make sure whoever's trying to assign this to you understands what they're sacrificing by assigning this new task to you when there's somebody else or some other team that might be able to take it on instead. And they might say, hey, actually, this is more important than the stuff you're working on. So yes, you should reprioritize. Yes, you should put this other stuff on the back burner and do this instead. Fine. But these are all conversations that really are best in person. So go and talk to the person who's assigning this task to you and talk through it. Make sure you're actually the right group to be doing this work. Also, you need to consider whether or not you can get this task done within the expectations that are being delivered to you. So you can say, hey, I'd be happy to take this on, but just to set expectations, I'm not going to be able to get to this until this certain date. Is that going to be okay? Sometimes the answer is yes. Not everything is time sensitive. So if you just set expectations up front as to when you can get to it, that will avoid a whole lot of hard feelings and misunderstandings later on. Or you could say something like, well, I could get this done now, but it's going to mean reprioritizing this other task. Is that okay? Is that an okay trade-off to you? If not, let's talk. Again, you need to go back and have that face-to-face conversation to make sure people understand the trade-offs that are involved in you taking on this additional work. And sometimes there's some strategy to this. Sometimes you need to ask, can you say no to another task to make room for this one? So maybe there's something on your plate that you already said you do, but maybe you're really not the best person to do it. So if you do need to make room for a new task that's coming your way, maybe that's not the task you try to delegate out. Maybe it's something else that's on your plate, and that might be easier to do. So another creative solution to being overburdened with work. Delegation, really the key to not being overwhelmed with this stuff. Sometimes you can just flat out say no. If it's a silly job that's just pointless busy work, maybe you should call it out as such. And obviously this requires tact and also is best done in person. But if someone's asking you to do something that really does not provide value to the business, maybe you should say so. That's demonstrating good leadership. So not all jobs are worth doing, and sometimes you just have to say so. But if you are able to manage your time and your tasks effectively this way by being disciplined, by maintaining focus and delegating when you can or when it's appropriate, it's going to make you more responsive. It's going to make you more reliable at the end of the day. And those are qualities that ultimately lead to a good reputation to you as a manager and good job reviews later on from both your upper management and from your own team. So very important tips as a new manager to really wrangle all these tasks that are going to be thrown at you, all these new meetings. Really, it just comes down to good time management and knowing how to route new tasks that are coming into the right home.